them at 973-763-2011. That's 973-763-2011. Coming up next, you want to hear what Tim Wise had to say about what Don Lemon said.
This is the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience. We want to hear from you at 973-327-3626 or log on to showmore.org to let us know your opinion.
Do you want your kid to run faster with better running form and conditioning for his or her sport? Then Running Development Academy is the place for him or her. Our training packages fix their form and make them run faster. How about training to run a marathon or just run faster in your respective event? Maybe you just want to learn to run properly and lose weight in the process. Our trainers, a former 800 meters track Olympian and an 8 times world record holder in Masters Track and Field, will get you there. Don't delay. Sign up today at runningdevelopmentacademy.com or contact us at 973-868-1444. That's 973-868-1444 to learn more.
For community news, sports, and opinions, call us at 973-327-3626 or log on to showmore.org. You're listening to the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience.
Want to learn piano for kids? Then I recommend Wendy Goldstein School of Piano. Wendy Goldstein has been offering piano lessons since 1993 and teaches piano in a very natural way. An alumni of Manhattan School of Music, Wendy creates customized lesson plans for each student and helps bring music alive. Wendy provides you a convenient location, the best value, and the most fun way to learn piano. All ages are welcome and the first lesson is always free. Have questions? Call Wendy at 201-207-5169.
Go ahead and advertise on the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience. You can reach us at 347-674-1680. That's 347-674-1680. An operator is standing by to assist you.
Want to take a cruise but don't have a U.S. visa? No problem. Cruise and Rail Travel are experts at cruises that do not require a U.S. visa. Visit www.cruiseandrail.net or call 868-631-8785. Find us on Facebook or drop us a tweet.
Are you looking for a professional logo design for your website, brand, or business? Then we are the company you are looking for. We are professional graphic designers, and with our skills, we will design a perfect, high-quality logo for you. We work with standout concepts, nice contrasts, and color balance. Please let us know your text for use in logo, web address, color of logo that you want. We will design 3 variations of your logo for you to choose from for only $99.95, with 100% refund of your $99.95 if you're not satisfied. We provide fast delivery and professional design. We also design any size web banner ad for $35. Call us at 347-674-1680. That's 347-674-1680. An operator is standing by to take your call.
A new kind of talk comes to South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience in April. Join award-winning journalist and civil rights activist Walter Fields weekly as he discusses being black in South Orange and Maplewood, race, and the suburban experience. Black in the Burbs will examine public education, the treatment of black youths, police and community relations, and black business development and faith. The show will serve as a forum for community dialogue. Join Walter Fields on the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience for Real Talk, coming in April.
For all your community news, sports opinions, and calls, you're listening to the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience.
We are back with you. It's in the Village with Anselm on the South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience. Coming to you every Monday through Friday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. That's Monday through Friday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. You can reach us here at 973-327-3626. That's 973-327-3626. What is the So More quote of the day? I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. That's the Somor quote of the day. And tonight, we are discussing Don Lemon, the CNN commentator. He had a little beef with the black community, and he issued 5 things he thinks we should do in the black community. However, Tim Wise, if many of you don't know of a gentleman by the name of Tim Wise, please Google Tim Wise, and you will see what a wonderful job this gentleman is doing in all the communities across the United States of America and the world. Now, Tim Wise was also on Don Lemon's show, and he had this to say to Don Lemon.
Let's continue the conversation now. My 5 tips for African Americans prompted strong reactions, even some outrage, some anger, some shock. Our next guest has 5 tips for white people to improve race relations or improve their conditions. So anti-racism activist and author Tim Wise joins us now from Nashville. Tim, man, I got a scathing email from you. Why were you so mad at me?
I wasn't mad at you, man. I just think that the words Bill O'Reilly didn't go far enough should never be uttered by anyone in this country, let alone you. But, you know, that was my beef.
Well, my thing is that there are many things that Bill O'Reilly and I disagree on, but this just happens to be one subject where we agree on a few things. And so, don't, as I said, don't shoot the messenger, attack the message. So, here, fix the message. So listen, you've been on this program. I was like, did Tim think this was the last conversation we were going to have about race? And you have been on this program 23 times since 2009, and that's the time that our booking department alerted you, not the times where I called you and personally asked you to be on this show. And we've had many conversations about race, about we've run the gamut. So this is it. So now let's have this conversation, since people were, you know, like, hey, you know, what about, why don't you talk about what white people can do? You say, stop dodging the issue by saying things like slavery was a long time ago. Get over it. Why?
Right. Well, that's the operative deflection, right? The idea that when we're talking about racism, we're automatically talking about the period of enslavement. But when black and brown folks are talking about racism, they're talking about what's going on now. They're talking about stop and frisk. They're talking about racial profiling, 2 million cases of housing discrimination a year now, even though we have fair housing laws. So I think when white folks do this, sort of like, well, that was a long time ago, it's inaccurate, it's disingenuous, and it's really sort of inconsistent because, frankly, we love the past when it makes us feel good. That's what July 4th is. That's what those fireworks are. The American Revolution happened a really long time ago. White folks aren't over that one yet. So it seems to me we ought to at least understand history does matter, and it continues into the present.
Okay. I know that this is your life's work, but I want to get through this. I only have a certain amount of time. I don't want to get through all 5 of them. You said, assume that people know their own lives better than you do. In other words, black folks aren't crazy when they say they get profiled. I had that argument, I'm sure you remember, with a conservative radio host recently. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That one's self-explanatory. Right.
Okay. All right, good. All right, stop saying you have a black friend as a get-out-of-racism-free card.
Right. I mean, the reality is, first of all, we say that we're oftentimes lying. We don't really. But more importantly, even if we have people of color in our lives, that would be like a straight man saying that he can't be sexist because he has a wife. Like, who would make that argument, right? Just because you have people who are close to you in a marginalized group doesn't mean that you don't carry any prejudice in the larger society. So that's not a get-out-of-racism-free card, and that's just not a legitimate response to the claim of racial bias.
Confront the long legacy of white denial when it comes to racism.
Yeah, this is a really big one. You know, the reality is I understand why white folks in 2013 might not see the problem, but what's really scary is that if you go back to 1962-63, when we were still an apartheid country, before civil rights laws had even been passed, between 2/3 and 90% of white Americans in Gallup polls at that time said that they thought black folks still had equal treatment in housing, employment, and schools. So I guess my challenge to white folks is, what does it say that even when racism was blatant, we didn't see the problem? And what does that mean for us now? If we didn't see it when it was blatant and we were wrong, and black and brown folks saw it and they were right, what makes us think that suddenly we've become really perceptive and they've lost their minds? That seems totally irrational to me.
Stop using statistics incorrectly to justify prejudice. And I think that One of those is talking about crime. We don't say white on white crime, but we say black on black crime. And then when you actually look at overall violent crime in the U.S. is coming down. It's still a crisis, especially in minority communities. It's still a crisis. People are still killing each other. But you said stop using statistics incorrectly.
What I mean by that is this, people have tried to rationalize racial profiling and stop and frisk in New York, for instance, by talking about the disproportionate crime rate in black communities. But the reality is that data cannot be used to justify general suspicion of all black folks. In New York, for instance, out of the millions of stops that have been made, less than 5% of the time is even a citation given, let alone an arrest. Less than 2% do they find drugs. Less than 0.2% do they find weapons. So the reality that there's disproportionate crime in a certain community cannot be used to justify the kind of overgeneralization that racial profiling and stop and frisk have brought about in places like New York and around the country.
It was hard for you to cut it down to 5, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had like 80. So folks who want to find out more can check it out on the website, or they can.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not listened to Tim Wise, please take a listen to Tim Wise. And that's just a little balance between what Don Lemon had to say as a black person and what Tim Wise had to say as a white person. And we can take a lot, especially in these communities of South Orange and Maplewood. We can take a lot from those statements, and we can do so much with it in this community. Now listen to this other audio here. This one is talking now about the education system.
That one day, this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Segregated schools were and are inferior schools. We still haven't fixed them 50 years after Brown versus Board of Education. And the inferior education they provided, then and now, helps explain the pervasive achievement gap between today's black and white students.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream for this.
When we take those tests, even when black and Latino students score at the top of the distribution, so even when black and Latino students do very well using the biased and absurd indicators that we use in this country, they're still 40% less likely to be put into an advanced placement class or an honors class in high school than white students who scored in the middle of the distribution. So you have average white students, according to this criteria, and of course the criteria is bogus, but understand it's the one we use. Using this criteria, white students who are merely average are still more likely to have advanced or accelerated classes once they get to high school. Now what does that mean? It means that those students are going to get more prepared for the SAT, right? They're going to get more prepared for the ACT, they're going to take the test, and they're going to do better. And we're going to act shocked when people of color do worse on a test that they were systemically excluded from preparing for, as if that is a surprise. I mean, black and Latino students of whatever socioeconomic status, 2.5 times more likely than whites to be put into remedial classes, where they're not going to receive the same instruction, they're not going to have the same coursework, they're not going to be challenged in the same way, right? And so we then act surprised when in 11th grade they take the SAT, the ACT, they don't do as well, and then our society says, well, now you're not capable of going on to college, or at least not that college, because you're not as smart as somebody else over here. The fact that the structure of the educational system guaranteed that you would not do as well, virtually assured it, is something we don't want to talk about. But that's the systemic issue.
And I really view education as the civil rights fight of our generation, that we have a moral obligation to do something dramatically better for children and to do it now. Our children have one chance at a quality education, and if we don't provide it, I think we perpetuate poverty and we perpetuate social failure. So this is an extraordinary opportunity, but this is a fight to me that's about